Greetings. Welcome to Nocturne 101. This is a little training video meant to orient the new supplier, new user, to the Nocturne system using the discrete purchase order version of Nocturne. One of our suppliers, Bonnie, has been good enough to sequester her username and password so we can have a look at Nocturne from the supplier's viewpoint. Let's roll. Each of the supplier users has been given a name and password by Helix Systems. From the home page, log in. You'll have an option to save the password for future. I'd suggest we do it. I'll not do that here. This supplier, Powermation, services the two Phillips warehouses 1 and 2, the two Sheboygan warehouses 4 and 5. At the time of this production, only the Sheboygan warehouses are using the version of Nocturne we're going to talk about today. If you are a supplier for Phillips Warehouse 1 and 2, you may want to seek additional orientation to this programming through the buyer in the division responsible. This is the home page. We'll click on Warehouse 5 and take a look at the manufacturing facility at Sheboygan. The supplier scorecard is part of each account. Here the supplier can take a look and, for all practical purposes, see what kind of a job we're doing with regard to keeping stock on the shelf, daily support, do I log in and take care of this supplier, and support over the last 90 days. Obviously at 97%, the supplier's doing a great job. We also have average duration or REDs, which means average number of days things that go into expedite mode stay there. We'll chat about that a little more later. Inventory value in US dollars. This is the inventory that the Sheboygan facility, the production side, has on the shelf now from this supplier. And then turns data. Obviously 56 inventory turns annual is great. Just a couple other little things about the home page before we move off of that. Upper right, here's Bonnie's user profile. From the drop down, we can take a look at Update Profile. This is where this user would go to change surname, last name. If there's a phone number change or an email address update, and time zone. In Central Standard Time Zone, all suppliers should be at -6. -6 in Central. Please make sure we don't mess around with that one. It throws things off terribly. User Profile is where we go to change password. If this user would prefer to change her password to something that would sync up or is more user-friendly than that Helix Systems has awarded her, select to change password. Those fields are then maintainable. Current password, new password, save, pretty generic. This program also has the ability to send alerts to the user's email inbox. There's a lot of different reports on here, and I would urge any of you to give these a try as you acclimate to the system. The one that's absolutely imperative, day one, is one that says part revision changes with last update. This assures that anytime our engineering department revises a print, that print then is sent to your Outlook inbox to be archived in our print file at your facility. Especially important for those job shops and machine shops that do a lot of build to print. Then there's notification alerts. These are notifications that pop up for you in the Nocturne system itself. In other words, entered by the buyer for the supplier or for the good of all users with regard to things that go on that day. You can get notified that new parts have been added, new notes are present, and the like. I would urge you all to turn some of these on and off, give them a try, and tailor the system to your individual need. For those of you that are working on your foreign language skills, be advised that not only is Nocturne available in English, but also Chinese, German, French, Italian, Japanese, and Hungarian. It's a virtual Berlitz program. Logout button, like any, if you're going to go home overnight, it's probably a good idea to make sure you're logged out of Nocturne. Data transmits overnight when our our business system regenerates, and logging out before the end of the day ensures that the system is closed and receptive to those updates. And the last little icon up here is the question mark. This is the help desk. For any issues that might arise within the software package itself. Screens look different, can't access data, I click and things don't go right. Here's the help desk, the admin support desk for the software developer. This is also where we would go if you would care to add new users at your facility, and in general just ask procedural questions. There are also some quick short videos here on some of the frequently asked questions, a frequently asked questions and how-to guide, and a little bit on recent updates to the system. Let's go down now and take a look at the toolbox. Again, we'll pick Warehouse 5. And let's just take a minute and look at the daily report. This one is called Daily Report because we kind of hope that you'll log in and take a peek at this thing daily. Here's how it works. I've hidden some columns here so as not to divulge pricing for our supplier. And in order to hide or expose columns, we just go up to Report Options, left click, and we can pick and choose what we want to see. Supplier part number is a good one to view. Things like rev number, control ID, packing slip, supplier company, that's who you are. Those are all things that can be hidden. We can go with display and print, display only, and hide. Each of you can custom tailor these reports to best fit you. Be advised that report tailoring is specific to your PC. If you jump to a different workstation, or if you have more than one user in your building, be advised that the revisions that you do on your computer won't necessarily show up on an alternative user's PC. Just a couple of things about this report, whole lot of data in here, but in order for you to be most successful in Nocturne 101, here we go. Gauge. All of the columns are sortable, and I'm going to sort this gauge column using the little pyramid. I kind of like to say pyramid and ice cream cone. But we're going to use pyramid on this, and this will float all of my red requirements to the top. A requirement turns red when we're within 5 days of being needed or past due. In other words, if it's red, it's okay to send that into our facility. A quick look up and down this column says if my upper and lower stocking limit is 2 and 2, and I have only 1 on the way in, I, as a supplier, might want to take a look at this requirement, check and see if there are open POs, or maybe hustle to see if there's something going on here. Likewise, a requirement for 1 and 1 with 0 on the way. We're within our lead time, we're within our need date, and nothing coming. At a glance, though, I can tell that if my min and max are 2 and 2 and I have 2 on the way, I'm probably covered and in good shape. And on down the line. Enough said about reds. A quick visual to see if we're in trouble on anything. Then there's the notes column, also sortable. We'll sort that one by ice cream cone. Notes that have come in and are now opened or have been viewed, all right, show an open envelope. We'll just page down a little bit to see if this user has any closed notes. Looks pretty good, all open. Nothing pending. If there were a closed envelope here, it would signify that this individual had a note waiting to be reviewed. A typical note might look like this. The expediter assigned to your account said, "Did these ship? In-transit dates are old." To which the supplier responded, "No, in-transit dates have been updated. New dates are in there." To populate those notes, simply click in the box, type in the text, submit. The great part about notes is, gone are the days when a single expediter had the sole responsibility for communicating to the rest of the organization what the status of a part is. We still have some great expediters chasing our parts and checking up on things that appear past due, but by virtue of notes, anybody in the facility can log into Nocturne, check the status for themselves without having to track down that expediter on a day off, lunch break, or off shift. Reds, notes, and lastly, probably on this report, to be successful, the supplier part number column. This is a field that the supplier owns and can populate with data as he or she sees fit. This might be an OEM part number. This might be a lead time. This might be an internal catalog number, or anything else about that part, that component, that the supplier deems pertinent and important to have showing on most of the reports that we're going to review today. To change that supplier part number field, put your cursor on the part number, left click to open. The first screen that we come to is basically just programming data for the developer. But by clicking the update button, you can populate that supplier part number field by putting the pertinent data here and clicking the save button. This is a great little tool. It can't be touched by the buying company, and it can really help aid in chasing down long lead time parts and things like that. In our facility, for those of you who are familiar with BW Paper Systems, we have 3 lines in the complete description of the part. The software only allows us to show the first 30 characters, so that supplier part number can be a valuable tool. Like I said, there's a lot of other great data on this report. Feel free to review it, but it's the supplier part number, the notes, and a quick check of reds on a daily basis that'll make you successful with this system. By the way, if you wish, all of the data that we're going to look at and all of the reports today are downloadable to Excel or to Word simply by clicking the button. They can all go to print. A word of caution: the live functions of the screens, notes, revisions, those types of things cannot be done in the Excel version, only in the Nocturne version. The next report that we're going to take just a quick look at is the in-transit report, and this is mostly for your advice. As your facility populates data in the in-transit report, the expected dates for all of those items show up in the expected dates column. This is sorted by ice cream cone, big to little, and it's sorted by what's due now and when is it due. The expediter assigned to your account will go into here, scroll down on a daily basis or whatever the case might be on a cyclical basis, and see if there's anything past due. We can see that for this supplier, the next open due date isn't until February 12th with nothing after. It would appear that this supplier is caught up and nothing late. Nice job. While we're here, just a mnemonic device or just a little something that we'll cover in detail later, there is an in-transit, a way to get to the in-transit report from these. And from the in-transit report, we'll be able to edit any shipment and update any date that's past due. One more time, in-transit report. Quick check of due dates. Click the little telegraph pole thingy and go to the corresponding shipment entry to change the date for the arrival. Estimated arrival date. The last thing that we're going to take a look at in the toolbox is daily future demand. This is, for all practical purposes, our MRP report. We'll click the Enable Editing button to make those part numbers show up. And here's how this report works. Our part number, that quick description, supplier part number, there's some costing in that. We're going to take that out right now. And then after that, this report goes out and shows what to expect in the future. All right? Here's all my future dates and requirements for those parts. Where the daily report showed you reds in just a quick snapshot, this report goes out as far as 26 weeks and will, to the extent that we have projects released, show you what our upcoming requirements will be. This might be a valuable tool for somebody in a job shop that's dealing with economic order quantities, setups, stock levels, and the like. An item goes in transit when we fill out an order form and say it's coming. On the production queue, in those columns downstream on the dates, we would take our in transit plus our ending balance for what's already covered and subtract it from the requirements showing in those columns, in the requirements columns, to show what it's good to produce for future dates. A word of caution. We may be seeing some things out there in April and May. Those requirements are most likely good, but those dates could move a little bit in and out by the time we get that far. Our schedule can be somewhat dynamic at times, and when we get out that far, there can be some changes. That said, this is a great report for future requirements for anybody in a job shop situation. Okay, we've covered a little bit the daily report. We've chatted about notes, supplier part numbers, and reds. We chatted a little bit about the in-transit report, how to look for things and quickly spot those that might be running late. We've talked about daily future demand, our MRP run, and all those things that are coming up and whether or not that would be beneficial to your facility for inventory planning. Now, we're going to take a look at the Reports tab and click on Purchase Order Reports. Select the site for which we're going to check those POs. We'll look at Warehouse 5 production. Here's a little thing about us. Warehouse 4 is customer service parts. We don't provide any lead time. You can look at all those reports and you'll see nothing coming up in the far future. The customer service side of the business gives everybody 2 days lead time, and it's up to the supplier to advise how soon those goods can arrive. That would be, in this instance, Sheboygan Warehouse 4 CS customer service parts. We're today looking at the production side of the business predominantly, where there are future requirements for machines that we're going to build in the future down the road, as well as those quick hitter requirements needed today. The discrete PO version of Nocturne actually issues purchase orders for all of those things that you see in the reports that we've looked at so far. Generally speaking, those purchase orders are queued to have a copy come to your inbox along with the prints for any new POs released that day. If that seems cumbersome to you, contact your buyer in the corresponding division and that can be turned off. That said, let's first take a look at unfilled POs today. If we look across the top, if you remember that daily future demand report, it showed the due date for all of those requirements. This PO report is the same. So across the top are the due dates for all of the requirements listed underneath. For most of the U.S. divisions, you can, as you take a look at the PO number, you can disregard the dash number, -5, -6, -7. That's simply the position for that particular line item, that part, on the purchase order. In this case, it's going to be 22-4600858. It'll be line 5 on the PO. For our US-based divisions, that's not important. For our European-based divisions, where they use an SAP operating environment, that comes into play. If you're a US user, you can disregard that part. So on 216, purchase order PP94408 issued for quantity 1 of whatever this thing is. Note you can see the supplier part number field here. Note you can hide columns if you wish. USL and LSL says that we're within range where we're going to need 2. We already have 1 in transit, but we need 1 more to fulfill that 2, and here's the PO that we do that with. Note too that notes are present on this report. However, be advised that the only notes you'll see on the PO report are for parts for which there are POs. Any other notes won't be visible on this report and are only visible and communicated by your expediter through the day of the report. That said, here's a requirement due on 216, this purchase order for quantity 1 of this part number. This supplier is probably going to enter a sales order, but rather than send an acknowledgement the old way, the traditional way, we'll just click on that blue box to add a shipment. It already defaults to that part number, a brief description, the quantity, the PO, and the estimated arrival date. As a supplier, if that arrival date is not achievable, this is where that would get edited. The select date sent, no need to change. Carrier, no need to fill in. Tracking number, not necessarily required. Packing slip number, not really needed. What we're primarily interested in is how many are we going to get, when are we going to get them. You may wish to put in your sales order number in the additional number field just to make it simpler for tracking purposes internally. Once that little order form is filled out, the PO then jumps to the filled side of the report. Same format. Here's when we promised it. Expected arrival date 2/9. Expected arrival date on all these was 2/12. So these have been promised for delivery that day. Like the in-transit report, there's a little icon here. If we need to edit that shipment information, if we need to change a date, this is the place where we're going to go. So your expediter gives you a call or sends you a note and says, whoops, we missed a date. What's going to happen? When are we going to get it? This is where the supplier would go in and change that estimated arrival date. The filled side also affects the in-transit balance. This supplier has enough purchase orders filled for this particular item down the road and in the future to yield a current in-transit balance of 9 pieces total. The in-transit balance changes as receipts are done at the buyer's facility. So goods are put in transit at the time the sales order is entered, so think of it as an acknowledgement, and fall off as receipts are done at the buying company. There are a couple of little cute little sort functions on this particular program as well. List by PO, rather than running all the due dates across the top, list by PO groups the purchase orders. That way all of the line items are grouped together in chronological order. Multi-line POs are readily and easily identified on this screen in case you're the type of business that likes to have all PO line items on a single sales order. Same thing holds true on a line by line by line by line by line basis. We can check notes send notes, and go in to add that shipment once the sales order has been entered. We can take the Add Shipment box for Warehouse 5 and open a complete order form for everything for which there's an open purchase order and go through and put everything on order at the same time. However, this is only valid if no date change is needed. So if as a supplier you can hit every due date for every item that you're going to populate on this order and submit it, that's a way to do it en masse. We'll just refresh that report. There are some PO exception reports out there. These are a little bit of a work in progress. Inactive PO shipments are those for which, and none here, those for which we're not seeing any activity anymore. For all possible purposes, they may have been canceled. Exception report shows those things that may have changed or that aren't going to make the delivery date. And we'll go in and take a peek at that and say, well, we would have liked it on the 8th, but it looks like we're not getting it until the 22nd. This is probably more valuable for buyer than seller, but it does show the delta, and it's the basis for a lot of that supplier scorecard that we looked at on the front end. And then there's a modified PO report that just goes through and shows any kind of a modification that's been made to the purchase order since the date that it came out. In other words, perhaps there was a date change or a quantity change. At the time of this recording, the modified PO report is still a work in process. So, we've chatted just a little bit now about our daily report, taking a peek at closed notes, what reds mean, we're in the zone, and how to revise that supplier part number. From time to time, you may wish to look just at a single part number, and we can take a find part, enter that part number, and it'll bring up that line on the daily report. Quick access point, quick way to get to a single part number, gives us all those little features, the edit, the note, the status, then USL, LSL, and in-transit balance. Here's that little in-transit icon, that telegraph pole thingy that we can open up and do that same edit shipment that we can do from the filled PO report or from the big in-transit report. That, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much a snapshot, a quick overview of Nocturne 101 using the discrete PO method. As questions arise, by all means, don't hesitate to contact your buying facility, the expediter assigned to your account, or a buyer in any of the BW Paper Systems facilities that you deal with. All are fluent in Nocturne, and they're ready and waiting to assist. Again, another thanks to Bonnie for letting us use that supplier password. We appreciate the training aid. Good luck. Have fun.